Hello everyone, I'm Kate Abarra from BSN2B. In this video, I'll be discussing about the pathophysiology of congenital heart defect that increase the pulmonary blood flow. First, what is a congenital heart defect? It is a problem in the structure of the heart that is present at birth. The defects can involve the walls of the heart, the valves of the heart, the arteries and veins near the heart. Here I have an illustration of the heart to discuss a recap of normal blood flow, so that you can also understand more of the process. So that the oxygenated blood from the upper body enters the superior vena cava, and that the oxygenated blood from the lower body enters the inferior vena cava, which then goes to the right atrium, passing to the tricuspid valve, going to the right ventricle, then to the pulmonic valve, then out to the main pulmonary artery. As it continues out to the right and left branch of the pulmonary artery, which the blood will travel to the lungs, and then in the lungs, the blood will be oxygenated. The oxygenated blood from the lungs will return back to the heart, to the four pulmonary veins, wherein the blood will enter the left atrium, going to the mitral valve, then down to, or the mitral valve or the bicuspid valve, going down to the left ventricle, then to the aortic valve, then out to the aorta, as it continues out across the transverse aorta, then down to the descending aorta, as the blood will be distributed to the rest of the body. So as the left ventricle has to pump the blood out to the rest of the body, it has a higher pressure system than the right side of the heart, because the right side of the heart only has to pump out blood to the lungs. Then this pressure in the heart allows the blood to flow from one chamber to another. So if the venous blood from the right side of the heart mixes with the blood in the left side of the heart, it allows the blood to deliver it to the rest of the body. And this is what we call a right to left shunt, and this is termed as cyanotic heart disease. If the blood from the left side of the heart mixes with the blood in the right side of the heart, it allows the blood to deliver to the lungs again, and this is what we call a left to right shunt, and termed as a cyanotic heart disease. So one defect that increases pulmonary blood flow is a ventricular septal defect, which I'll be discussing, or the VSD. The VSDs are one of the most common effects found in the children, either in isolation or combined with other defects such as etiology of Fallot and atrioventricular septal defect. It occurs when a portion of the ventricular septum does not close, or the septum is not fully developed. So there is a hole in the wall of the ventricular septum. A septum is a wall that separated both sides of the heart. In this case, the septum that lies between the lower chambers is what we call the ventricular septum, or between the right and left ventricles. And then there are four types of VSD based on the location of the hole. First is the membranous VSD, which is located in the upper section of the septum, which is near the tricuspid valve and over the aortic valve. Next is the muscular VSD, which is located in the lower section of the septum, which if there's a small hole, it has a high capability to close on its own. And then there's outlet VSD, or what we also call subatrial VSD, that is found in the structures such as the pulmonic valve and the aortic valve, wherein the blood goes out. And then the inlet VSD is found in the structures near the tricuspid valve and the mitral valve or the bicuspid valve, wherein the blood goes in. And that is the opposite of the outlet VSD. So in ventricular septal defect, the cause is unknown, but it can be a genetic factor or environmental factor. And then, so for the process of VSD, of course, the deoxygenated blood will enter the superior and inferior vena cava, going to the right atrium, then to the tricuspid valve, going down to the right ventricle, up to the pulmonic valve, then to the main pulmonary artery, Then going to the lungs, as the lungs will oxygenate the blood. And so the oxygenated blood will go back to the heart, to the pulmonary vein, then to the left atrium, going down the mitral valve, then to the left ventricle. So the oxygenated blood from the left ventricle will then travel across, of course, to the aortic valve, then to the aorta, then to the rest of the body. Which allows the blood to have systemic circulation. So, since there's a hole in the ventricular septum, the blood will not only go to the aorta, but will also go to the right side of the heart by entering to the open ventricular septum. Okay. By then, this is what we call a left-to-right shunt. Since the left ventricle or the left side of the heart has higher pressure, it allows the blood to move from the left side of the heart to the right side of the heart. And since it is a left-to-right shunt, as I have said earlier, it is what we call a cyanotic effect or a cyanotic heart disease. So this because of the high velocity to the defect, it gives a holosystolic murmur. A holosystolic murmur at the lower left sternal border, which sounds like this. Instead of a lub dub, which is the normal heart sound. So, because of the oxygenated blood going to the right side of the heart, the blood will be mixed with the unoxygenated blood or the deoxygenated blood in the right ventricle. As the right ventricle will have both the deoxygenated blood and the deoxygenated blood, it will cause the right ventricle to increase the blood volume. And this causes the right ventricle to enlarge. And so the blood from the right ventricle will still travel to the pulmonic valve, then to the pulmonary artery, then to the lungs. But now, since the right ventricle has increased blood volume, it will also deliver excess blood to the lungs, which then causes the lungs to have more pressure. And that will cause the arteries that feed the lungs to be constricted or narrowed. Since there will be a constriction of arteries, this will cause a pulmonary hypertension. And this pulmonary hypertension will cause the child to have breathing problems, and since the right ventricle have excess blood volume, it has to pump more than it normally does. So this pumping out of the blood will cause the heart to stresses out, and this will lead to heart failure. And that ends the pathophysiology of ventricular septal defect.